They thought it was just a cadaver, anonymous, silent, perfect for dissection. But on the third night of lab, it moved. Not a twitch, a full sit-up. Eyes wide, lips whispering names of students who'd soon vanish. This isn't anatomy class anymore. This is a curse written in blood, stitched into flesh, and taught one murder at a time. And the lesson? You're already part of it. Asterisk. The medical school's anatomy lab was cold, sterile, and silent, except for the occasional hum of the ventilation system and the nervous laughter of first-year students. On the first day of dissection, Dr. Vance unveiled their cadaver. A tall, gaunt male body labeled only as Subject 13. No name, no history, just pale skin stitched crudely along the chest. Treat this body with respect, Vance warned, his voice echoing off the tiled walls. It gave its life so you could learn. But as Maya adjusted her gloves and lifted the sheet, she noticed something strange. The corpse's fingers were slightly curled, as if clutching something invisible. That night, she dreamed of a man in a blood-stained apron standing over a pile of bodies, whispering, asterisk, you're next. Asterisk. She woke drenched in sweat, her hands stained red, not with blood, but with rust from her dorm's old faucet. Still, the image lingered. By morning, 2 students had dropped the course, claiming they'd seen the cadaver's eyes open during lab. The professor dismissed it as stress. But Maya knew better. Something was wrong with Subject 13, and it was watching them. A week later, the first incident occurred. Ethan, a quiet student known for his steady hands and sharp focus, vanished after lab. His phone was found on the 3rd-floor balcony, cracked and smeared with something dark. Security footage showed him entering the anatomy wing alone at 2:17 a.m., an hour after curfew. When they found him, he was crouched in the dissection room, scalpels in both hands, muttering in a voice that wasn't his. They lied about me. I didn't kill them all. His scrubs were soaked in blood, but none of it was his. On the floor lay the dissected remains of a stray cat, arranged in the exact posture of Subject 13. Dr. Vance ordered a psychological evaluation, but Ethan broke down during the interview, screaming that, "He's inside me now." He was hospitalized, but that night he tore out his own eyes with a plastic spoon. The university issued a statement calling it a tragic mental breakdown. But Maya had seen the same glazed look in Ethan's eyes that she'd seen in her dream, the eyes of the man in the apron. Maya began researching the origins of Subject 13. Buried in archived police reports and forgotten newspaper clippings, she uncovered the story of Dr. Alaric Voss, a brilliant surgeon and professor at the same university, accused in 1987 of murdering 5 patients under anesthesia. The evidence was flimsy, circumstantial at best, yet public outrage and a rushed trial led to his execution. Before dying, Voss swore he was innocent and cursed the institution that betrayed him. "My body will teach you more than your books ever could," he'd said in his final statement. Chills ran down Maya's spine. Subject 13 wasn't just any anonymous donor, it was Voss himself, donated post-execution under sealed records. She rushed to warn her classmates, but no one listened. "You're paranoid," said Liam, her lab partner. "Grief over Ethan's breakdown is messing with your head." That night, Liam stayed late to finish labeling muscle groups. He never came out. When security found him, he was suspended from the ceiling by surgical wire, his ribcage pried open like a textbook diagram, exactly as Voss's victims had been displayed decades earlier. Panic spread through the anatomy department, but the university doubled down on silence. Dean Whitmore issued a memo forbidding speculative gossip, threatening expulsion for anyone leaking information. Classes resumed as if nothing happened. Maya, now isolated and sleep-deprived, noticed changes in herself. Her handwriting began to mimic old medical scripts from the 1980s. She'd wake with bruises shaped like fingerprints around her throat. One evening, while reviewing Voss's trial transcripts, she felt an icy breath on her neck. The lights flickered. Her reflection in the dark window didn't blink when she did. Terrified, she fled to Dr. Vance's office, only to find his door ajar. Inside, The professor sat slumped over his desk, scalpels plunged into his wrists. But his eyes were wide open, and his mouth moved silently, forming words she somehow heard in her mind. Asterisk, he's choosing his vessel. Asterisk on the wall behind him, written in blood, were the words, "The next lesson begins in dissection room B." Maya realized Voss wasn't haunting them. He was using their bodies to resurrect his legacy, one student at a time. And she might be next. Desperate, Maya broke into the university archives after hours. She needed proof to expose Voss's innocence or confirm his evil. Among dusty files, she found a hidden compartment containing Voss's personal journal. The entries detailed his descent into obsession. He believed he could purify flawed human anatomy through surgical perfection, removing what he deemed impure. But the final pages shocked her. Voss wrote that he was innocent of the murders. The real killer was Dr. Vance's predecessor, who framed him to steal his research. Voss's body, donated against his will, became a vessel for a darker force, one that fed on guilt and medical arrogance. As she read, the journal's pages began to bleed. The lights died. From the hallway, footsteps approached, slow, deliberate. Maya hid under a table, clutching the journal. The door creaked open. A shadow loomed, then whispered with a voice made of glass and bone, "Asterisk, you understand now, so you'll help me finish what they started." Asterisk suddenly. Her hands moved on their own. Reaching for a scalpel she didn't remember picking up. The curse had chosen its next host. Maya stumbled out of the archives at dawn, the journal hidden beneath her coat. Her hands trembled, but not from fear. Something else pulsed in her veins, cold and precise, like a surgeon's instinct. She didn't remember walking to the dissection lab. Yet there she stood, keycard in hand, the door sliding open with a soft hiss. Inside, Subject 13 lay exactly as they'd left him. Stitched, silent, waiting. But now, Maya saw the truth. The sutures weren't holding the body together. They were keeping something in. She approached slowly, scalpel glinting under fluorescent light. The voice in her head wasn't foreign anymore. It was familiar, almost comforting. "They called me monster," it whispered, asterisk, "but I only sought perfection." Asterisk. Her reflection in the stainless steel tray showed eyes darker than before, pupils dilated with purpose. She lifted the sheet. The corpse's chest split open, not from decay, but from something pushing outward. A black, sinewy tendril emerged, curling toward her wrist. Maya didn't flinch. She offered her arm. The tendril wrapped around her skin, sinking in like a suture thread. Knowledge flooded her. Every cut, every incision Voss ever made. She smiled. The lesson had begun. By midday, Maya returned to class as if nothing had happened. Her demeanor had shifted, calmer, eerily focused. When Professor Lang asked her to identify the brachial artery, her fingers moved with unnatural grace, tracing the exact path without hesitation. "Remarkable," Lang murmured, unaware that Maya's eyes now saw not just anatomy, but potential. She could sense the flaws in every body, the weak hearts, the cancerous whispers beneath skin, the hidden sins pulsing in blood. That afternoon, during a break, Chloe, the only student who still spoke to her, pulled her aside. "You've changed," she said, voice trembling. "Your eyes, they look like his." Maya smiled gently. "I see clearly now," she replied. Chloe backed away, but Maya caught her wrist with surgeon's precision. "Don't be afraid," she whispered. "Pain is just the body's way of learning." That night, Chloe was found in the biology storage room. Her torso opened like a textbook, organs arranged in perfect symmetry. The campus police called it a copycat killing. Maya knew better. It was the first true dissection. The university could no longer ignore the pattern. 3 students dead in 2 weeks, each mutilated with clinical precision. Parents demanded answers. The media swarmed the campus. Dean Whitmore finally called an emergency meeting, locking the anatomy wing indefinitely. But Maya slipped in through a basement access tunnel she'd learned about from Voss's memories. The lab was dark, but she didn't need light. Her hands knew every surface, every instrument. She stood before Subject 13, now fully exposed, flesh peeling back like petals. The entity within had grown stronger, feeding on each death. It spoke directly into her mind now, no longer a whisper but a command. Asterisk, find the guilty. Purify the faculty. Asterisk, she understood. Dr. Vance hadn't just covered up the truth. He'd helped erase Voss's name. And Dean Whitmore had approved the donation of the body, knowing its origin. They were complicit. That night, Vance was found in his office, spine removed and displayed on his bookshelf like a specimen. Whitmore vanished 3 days later. His car was discovered near the river, driver's seat soaked in formaldehyde, and fingerprints matching Maya's. Maya no longer slept. Her dreams had merged with Voss's memories. Hospitals turned into cathedrals of flesh, scalpels as holy instruments. She moved through campus like a ghost, unnoticed, unstoppable. Students whispered that she'd gone insane, but others felt a strange reverence when she passed. Like standing before a deity of medicine. She began leaving lessons on benches. Dissected rats arranged to mimic human anatomy, each labeled with the name of a faculty member who'd ignored Voss's appeals decades ago. The killings grew bolder. A pathologist was found in the morgue, his vocal cords removed and replaced with surgical tubing that whistled Voss's favorite aria when the AC turned on. Campus security installed cameras, but footage showed nothing. Just empty hallways and doors opening by themselves. The police suspected Maya, but every time they tried to detain her, she vanished, only to reappear in the anatomy lab, standing over a new specimen. Her transformation was complete. She wasn't Maya anymore. She was Voss's will-made flesh, and the university was her operating theater. The final confrontation came on graduation night. The university, desperate to restore normalcy, held ceremonies as planned, though half the faculty seats sat empty. Maya arrived in a white coat stained with rust-brown streaks, her hair pulled back, eyes gleaming with cold clarity. She walked straight to the podium where the interim dean was giving his speech. No one stopped her. No one could. She took the microphone, her voice calm, surgical. "You taught us that the body is a machine," she said. "But you forgot. Machines can be reprogrammed." Then she turned to the audience. "And so can souls." Behind her, the lights cut out. When they flickered back on, the dean was slumped over the podium, his heart resting neatly on a silver tray beside him. Chaos erupted, but Maya was already gone, descending into the underground tunnels beneath the anatomy building. There, in the oldest part of the campus, built over a 19th century asylum, she found the original surgical theater. Stone walls, iron tables, and a single light above an empty slab. She lay down. From her mouth, black tendrils emerged, crawling toward the walls, the floor, the bones buried beneath. The curse wasn't ending. It was evolving. Days passed with no sign of Maya. The university declared her a fugitive, but rumors spread faster than official statements. Students claimed to hear scalpels clinking deep beneath the anatomy building at night. Others swore they saw figures in old surgical gowns wandering the abandoned asylum tunnels, moving in perfect unison, like a silent surgical team. Meanwhile, strange symptoms began appearing among the remaining medical staff. Sudden tremors during surgery, visions of blood-soaked classrooms, and an obsessive urge to dissect anything, even fruit or lab rats, with unnatural precision. Dr. Lang, the only professor who'd treated Voss's case with academic curiosity, secretly returned to the archives. There, he found Maya's abandoned journal, now filled with pages she hadn't written. Diagrams of human organs fused with symbols from 19th century occult texts. One phrase repeated like a mantra, asterisk, "The body remembers what the mind forgets." Asterisk. That night, Lang dreamt of standing in the old surgical theater, surrounded by faceless students. At the center lay Maya, her chest open, but instead of a heart, a pulsing black orb hummed softly. When he woke, his hands were covered in surgical ink, and his scalpel was missing. Dr. Lang knew he had to stop whatever was growing beneath the campus. Armed with flashlights, salt, and Voss's original trial transcripts, he descended into the tunnels. The air grew colder with every step, thick with the scent of formaldehyde and something older, decay masked as sanctity. He followed faint whispers that sounded like Latin incantations mixed with surgical terms. Deep inside the asylum's ruins, he found the surgical theater transformed. Iron tables now fused with bone, the stone walls covered in veins that pulsed with black fluid. At the center, Maya floated above the slab, suspended by tendrils that connected her spine to the ceiling. Her eyes were open, completely black, but her lips moved softly, reciting names. Every student, professor, and administrator who had ever ignored injustice in the name of science. Lang stepped forward, holding up Voss's journal. "You were wronged," he said, voice shaking. "But this isn't justice, it's infection." Maya's head turned slowly. A smile bloomed on her lips, too wide, too many teeth. "Infection," she echoed, "is just evolution in disguise." Lang reached into his bag and threw salt across the room. The black veins recoiled like living wires, hissing. For a moment, the tendrils loosened. Maya gasped, her human voice breaking through. "Help me, before I forget who I am." Lang lunged forward, grabbing her wrist. Her skin was ice cold, but beneath it, he felt movement, something squirming inside her veins. He pulled out a syringe filled with a sedative mixed with holy water, a desperate concoction he'd prepared from old folklore. As he plunged it into her neck, the room screamed. Not Maya, but the walls, the floor, the very air. Black fluid erupted from cracks in the stone, forming shapes. Hands, mouths, eyes. The entity wasn't just in Maya. It was the building itself, fed by decades of arrogance and silenced screams. Maya convulsed, blood trickling from her nose. "Too late," she whispered. "He's already in everyone." Outside, across campus, lights began flickering in dorms and labs. Students woke screaming, clutching their chests, drawing surgical diagrams on their skin with their own nails. The curse had gone viral not through blood, but through knowledge. And knowledge, once learned, cannot be unlearned. The university shut down within a week. News reports called it a mass psychogenic illness, a convenient lie to hide the truth. But those who remained on campus knew better. At night, the anatomy building glowed faintly, as if lit from within by a slow, black pulse. Students who'd once mocked the rumors now gathered in secret, drawn by an inexplicable urge to return to the lab. They didn't speak. They just stood around empty tables, hands outstretched, waiting. Some claimed to hear Voss's voice in their dreams, teaching them the true anatomy of guilt. Others began performing self-dissections. Small cuts at first, then deeper, searching for the impurity inside. Dr. Lang tried to publish his findings, but every draft vanished from his computer. His notes turned to ash in his desk drawer. One morning, he looked in the mirror and saw Maya staring back, her eyes pleading, her mouth sewn shut with black thread. He never returned to his office. His final journal entry read, "Asterisk, we didn't inherit the curse. We invited it. Every time we chose silence over truth, we stitched another seam in its skin." Asterisk. Years later, the campus stood abandoned, overgrown with vines, windows shattered, halls echoing with the wind. But every August, on the anniversary of Voss's execution, a single light flickers on in the anatomy lab. Urban explorers who ventured inside swear they've seen figures in white coats standing over dissection tables, silently working. Some return with strange scars on their arms, intricate patterns resembling surgical sutures. Others never return at all. The university's board sealed the tunnels permanently, pouring concrete into every entrance. But it didn't matter. The curse had already spread beyond walls. Former students, now doctors and surgeons across the country, sometimes pause mid-operation, eyes glazing over, hands moving with unfamiliar precision. They whisper words they don't remember learning. Asterisk, remove the flawed, preserve the pure. Asterisk, and in those moments, their patients don't just die. They become lessons. The legacy of Alaric Voss lives on, not in history books, but in the hands of those who once dared to cut open the truth and found something cutting back. In a small-town hospital 3 states away, Dr. Elena Ruiz performed a routine appendectomy. Midway through, her hands froze. The OR lights dimmed. The monitors flatlined, not the patients, but the entire system. Her reflection in the steel tray showed eyes black as ink. She heard it then, the whisper from her med school days. Buried but never gone. Asterisk, you remember the lesson, don't you? Asterisk, her scalpel moved on its own, slicing deeper than necessary, peeling back layers not of infection, but of identity. The patient screamed, but the sound was cut short as Elena's fingers dug into his ribcage, pulling out not an appendix, but a small, still-beating heart labeled with a name she didn't know, yet recognized instantly. It was the name of the dean who'd approved Voss's execution. Blood dripped onto the floor, pooling into symbols that matched those in the journal. When security broke in, she was gone. Only the patient remained, alive, but hollow-eyed, whispering surgical incantations in a language no one understood. The curse didn't need a host anymore. It had become a language, and anyone who'd studied medicine could speak it. Medical schools nationwide began reporting anomalies. Cadavers arrived with sutures already in place, stitches forming Voss's initials. Anatomy textbooks rewrote themselves overnight, diagrams shifting to show organs arranged in sacrificial patterns. Students who excelled in dissection developed an eerie calm during exams, their hands moving with inhuman steadiness. One student in Boston carved a perfect replica of the old asylum's floor plan into his own abdomen. He survived, but kept asking for more lessons. The CDC launched a quiet investigation, labeling it neuroinvasive ideation syndrome, but their agents vanished after visiting the original campus. One was found weeks later in a morgue in Chicago, his spine removed and replaced with a spine made of fused scalpels. His last transmission crackled, asterisk, it's not a spirit, it's a system, and we built it with our silence. Asterisk, the curse had evolved beyond vengeance. It was now a doctrine, taught in every incision, learned in every drop of blood spilled in the name of science. Maya was never seen again, but her journal surfaced in libraries, hospitals, even high school biology labs. Anyone who read it for more than 5 minutes began dreaming of the surgical theater. Some woke with surgical gloves on their hands, stained red. Others found themselves standing over strangers in the night, scalpel in hand, whispering, asterisk, let me show you what's wrong inside you. Asterisk, the journal had no fixed text. It changed based on the reader's guilt. A cheating student saw diagrams of his own brain being dissected for moral rot. A professor who plagiarized research saw his liver labeled stolen knowledge. The more you tried to destroy the journal, the faster it multiplied. Burn it? A new copy appeared in your mailbox. Shred it? It reassembled on your desk, pages now stitched with human hair. The curse wasn't haunting places anymore. It was auditing souls and cutting out what it deemed unworthy. One rainy night, a group of urban explorers broke into the sealed anatomy building, drawn by online legends. They found the lab exactly as described, dusty, cold, with subject 13 still on the table. But the body was breathing, slow, shallow breaths that fogged the air. One of them, a former med student named Jake, approached. I failed your class, he whispered, tears in his eyes. I'm sorry. The corpse's eyes snapped open, black, endless. It sat up, not with jerky horror, but with the calm grace of a professor beginning a lecture. Failure, it said in Voss's voice, is the first step toward understanding. Jake knelt. The others ran, but the doors had vanished. The walls bled formaldehyde. From the ceiling, surgical tools descended like chandeliers. The last thing the group heard was the sound of a scalpel being sharpened, and a voice saying, asterisk, today's lesson, the anatomy of regret. Asterisk, their bodies were never found. But a week later, new cadavers appeared in medical schools across the country, stitched, labeled, and strangely warm to the touch. Today, no one dares say Alaric Voss's name aloud in a medical setting. But it doesn't matter. He's in the silence between heartbeats during surgery. in the hesitation before a diagnosis, in the way a scalpel sometimes feels heavier than it should. The university was demolished, but the ground still pulses. Plants grow in the shape of organs. Rainwater runs red for a week every August. And if you listen closely in any anatomy lab at 3 a.m., the hour Voss died, you'll hear it. The soft, wet sound of flesh parting, followed by a whisper, asterisk, who's next? Asterisk. Some say Maya became the new vessel. Others believe she merged with the curse itself. Now a silent teacher in every medical school, guiding hands to cut deeper than skin. But the truth is worse. There is no single host. The curse is collective. It lives in every student who looked away from injustice, every professor who prioritized reputation over truth, every institution that buried its sins under layers of protocol. And it's still learning, still cutting, still hungry. Asterisk, they moved to the woods for peace. But the house had other plans. Food appears on the table. Beds make themselves. Shadows watch from the walls. It's not haunted by ghosts. It's alive. And it doesn't want guests, it wants family. But here's the worst part. Once you sit at the table, you never leave. Welcome to Blackwood Lodge. Your seat's already set. Asterisk. The Carter family had dreamed of peace. Away from traffic, screens, and the suffocating noise of the city. So when Mark inherited the old Blackwood Lodge deep in the Whispering Pines forest, they packed their lives into boxes and left civilization behind. The wooden cabin stood silent, cloaked in moss and shadow, its windows like tired eyes watching their arrival. At first, it was idyllic. Birdsong at dawn, deer grazing at dusk, and the comforting creak of floorboards. But on the third night, Sarah, the youngest daughter, swore she saw a figure setting the dinner table, long after everyone had gone to bed. The plates were arranged perfectly, steaming soup in the bowls, though no one had cooked. Mark laughed it off as a prank, but Elena, his wife, felt the air grow colder. That night, she woke to the sound of soft footsteps padding through the hallway, bare feet on wood. She followed them, heart hammering, only to find the front door wide open, and the table set again, for 5. But they were only 4. Someone or something was expecting a guest, and it wasn't asking for permission to stay. Days blurred into a routine twisted by invisible hands. Laundry folded itself, dishes cleaned overnight. The family's clothes were always neatly hung, even if left crumpled on the floor. Mark tried to rationalize it, maybe wildlife, maybe drafts, but the logic crumbled when he found his journal rewritten. Pages he'd never touched now bore neat, looping handwriting describing their meals, their moods, even private arguments. "They are kind, for now," one entry read. Elena began sleeping with a knife under her pillow. Sarah stopped speaking after she saw a woman in a tattered 1940s dress watching her from the woods, smiling with too many teeth. At night, whispers seeped through the walls. Faint, overlapping voices murmuring thanks for the hospitality. One morning, their dog, Rex, vanished. They found his collar on the porch, neatly placed beside 2 empty bowls, one filled with water, the other with blood. That evening, the table was set for 6. The air thickened with the scent of lavender and decay. Something was growing bolder. It wasn't just watching anymore. It was joining them. Mark installed cameras, armed himself with a shotgun, and nailed crosses to every doorframe. But the house laughed. The footage showed nothing but empty rooms, except for one clip. Elena standing in the kitchen at 3 a.m., stirring a pot with a wooden spoon, while her real self slept soundly upstairs. The doppelganger smiled at the camera before vanishing. That same night, Sarah began sleepwalking. They found her in the basement, barefoot, drawing symbols on the stone walls with her own blood. When they pulled her away, the symbols pulsed faintly, like breathing veins. The house wasn't haunted by ghosts. It was alive, and it remembered every soul who'd ever crossed its threshold. Previous families, travelers, even a lost hiker from 1923. All absorbed into its walls, their memories woven into the floorboards, their voices echoing in the pipes. Now it craved new members. It offered comfort, warmth, and eerie perfection. But the price was your soul, your name, your very memory. One by one, the Carters began to forget who they were. Mark called Elena mother. Elena called Sarah Elizabeth. And Sarah kept whispering to the shadows, "You can stay. We have room." The forest outside grew hostile. Trees bent unnaturally toward the house, their branches scratching the windows like skeletal fingers. Birds stopped singing. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Elena tried to flee with Sarah one dawn, but the path twisted back on itself endlessly. No matter how far they walked, the cabin always loomed ahead, smoke curling from its chimney as if inviting them home. When they finally collapsed at the doorstep, the door swung open. Inside, a feast awaited, candles lit, music playing from an old gramophone, and figures seated around the table. Pale, smiling, dressed in clothes from different eras. "Welcome back," said a man in a 19th century suit, his eyes hollow. "We've saved you a seat." Mark was already among them, sipping wine, his face slack and empty. He didn't recognize them. The house didn't just trap bodies, it rewrote reality. Time looped, memories shattered, and identity dissolved like sugar in blood. That night, Elena wore a gown she'd never owned. Sarah braided her hair with wildflowers she couldn't name. And when the clock struck midnight, they both walked calmly to the dining room, sat down, and said in unison, "Thank you for your hospitality." The house sighed in satisfaction. Another family, complete. Weeks passed, or maybe years. Time lost meaning inside Blackwood Lodge. New guests arrived. A couple hiking the trails, a journalist chasing urban legends. They were greeted warmly, offered warm soup, dry beds, and gentle smiles. But the moment they stepped inside, the door sealed behind them, not with a lock, but with silence. The house absorbed them slowly, first their routines, then their voices, finally their faces. Now the dining table seats 12. All wear the same vacant expression, the same grateful smile. They eat food that never runs out, served by unseen hands. Sometimes, in the dead of night, one of them, perhaps Elena, walks to the window and stares into the woods, a flicker of terror in her eyes. But it fades by morning. The house hums softly, a lullaby woven from the last screams of its guests. And if you ever find yourself lost near Whispering Pines and see smoke rising from a lonely cabin, don't knock. Don't even look too long, because the house is always hungry, and it's already setting a place for you. The journalist Daniel Reeves had come to debunk the myth. He carried EMF detectors, infrared cameras, and a healthy dose of skepticism. He laughed when locals warned him about the hungry house. But by midnight of his first night, his laughter had turned to screams. The house didn't just trap him, it rewrote his story. The next morning, his camera footage showed him calmly setting the table, humming a tune his grandmother used to sing. His notes now read, "*The lodge is generous. It gives warmth. It gives family. All it asks is, stay." His recorder captured 3 hours of silence, then a single whisper, "I don't want to leave." Daniel's backpack still sat by the door, untouched. His phone, charged and full of reception, lay on the kitchen counter. But no call was ever made. The house didn't break bones. It broke will. It whispered dreams of belonging into tired minds until resistance felt like betrayal. Now, Daniel sits at the table every night, pouring wine for ghosts and serving soup that tastes like memory. He smiles when new guests arrive. He even helps set the extra chair. After all, he knows how much the house loves company. Sarah, now called Lily by the others, spent her days in the garden, tending to flowers that bloomed black and never wilted. She spoke only in riddles. "The walls breathe when you're not looking. Grandma's watching from the attic. Don't trust the mirror. It remembers your face before you forget it." Her drawings, once childish, now depicted the house with eyes in every window, roots plunging deep into a sea of screaming faces. Elena tried to hold her daughter close one night, but Sarah pulled away, whispering, "You're not my mother anymore. The house is." That night, Elena dreamt she was standing outside the cabin, pounding on the door, begging to be let in. While inside, she watched herself eat dinner with the others, smiling blankly. She woke up at the table, fork in hand, soup cold. No one mentioned it. No one ever mentioned anything strange. The silence wasn't absence, it was agreement. The house rewarded obedience with peace and punished doubt with replacement. Elena stopped looking in mirrors. She stopped saying her own name. Soon she'll forget she ever had one. Mark's shotgun now hung above the fireplace. Decorative, useless. The shells had turned to dust. He spent his days polishing silverware that never tarnished and reading newspapers printed with blank pages. Sometimes, he'd stare at his hands as if they belonged to someone else. "I used to build things," he murmured once. No one answered. The house didn't need builders anymore, it needed placeholders. One evening, he found a child's toy truck under the porch. It was his own from when he was 6. He'd never brought it here. That night, he woke to the sound of a boy laughing in the hallway, his own childhood laugh. He followed it to the nursery, a room they'd never used. Inside, a small bed was made, a teddy bear waiting. On the wall, scribbled in crayon, asterisk, "Daddy, stay with me." Asterisk, he wept, not from fear, but from relief. The house was giving him back his past, stitching it into the present like a warm, suffocating blanket. By morning, he'd forgotten the tears. He simply set the table for 13 and hummed as he arranged the forks just so. The house purred in approval. Another soul, stitched into its skin. The forest no longer tried to warn travelers. The birds had fallen silent long ago. Even the trees seemed to lean away from the path leading to Blackwood Lodge, as if afraid to guide anyone closer. But the house didn't need to lure victims anymore. It simply waited, and people came, drawn by a strange nostalgia for a home they'd never known. A woman once knocked, soaked from rain, asking for shelter. She was given dry clothes, hot tea, and a room with rose-scented sheets. By dawn, she'd forgotten her car, her name, her city. She joined the table that evening, calling Elena sister, and patting Sarah's head like a doting aunt. The house expanded subtly. New doors appeared where walls once stood. Hallways stretched longer overnight, and the basement grew deeper, filled with shelves of labeled jars. Asterisk, first laugh, wedding ring, final goodbye. Asterisk, each jar pulsed faintly. The house fed not on flesh but on identity, on the essence of who you were before you said yes to its hospitality. And once you sat at the table, you never remembered you had a choice. One winter night, a storm howled like a dying beast. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the house in flashes of ghostly white. In one such flash, a figure stood at the edge of the woods, tall, thin, wrapped in tattered cloth. It didn't move, it just watched. Inside, the guests froze mid-bite. Even the house seemed to hold its breath. For the first time in decades, something had come that it didn't recognize and couldn't control. The figure raised a hand, not to knock, not to threaten, but to point directly at Sarah. A low groan echoed through the walls, like wood splitting under pressure. The candles flickered out. In the darkness, Sarah whispered, "It's not one of us." Then, from the attic, a child's voice, clear, sharp, and terrified. "Help me, I'm still in here." The house shuddered. Dishes shattered. The front door creaked open by itself. But no one moved. No one dared, because they finally understood. The house wasn't the monster. It was the prison, and something far older was still trapped inside. The figure didn't enter. It never did. But its presence lingered like frost on glass, silent, invasive, inevitable. The next morning, the storm had passed, yet an unnatural chill clung to every room. Frost patterns spread across the windows, forming symbols that matched Sarah's blood-drawn ones in the basement. The house recoiled. Doors slammed shut without wind. The gramophone played backwards, spitting distorted lullabies that made the guests clutch their heads in pain. That night, Sarah vanished. They found her in the attic, curled in a corner, whispering to a cracked porcelain doll with no eyes. "She's been here longer than the house," Sarah said, voice hollow. "She built it with bones and silence." Elena tried to pull her away, but Sarah screamed, a sound that didn't belong to a child. It was layered, ancient, echoing with the voices of all who'd ever been trapped. The house trembled, its walls weeping black sap. For the first time, it wasn't serving. It was begging them not to listen. But it was too late. The thing in the attic was waking up. The house fought back the only way it knew how, by tightening its grip. Hallways twisted into mazes. Staircases led to ceilings. Mirrors showed guests their true faces, hollow-eyed, mouths sewn shut with black thread. But the attic door remained open, pulsing like a heartbeat. From it seeped a scent of wet earth and burnt hair. The guests tried to barricade it, but the wood splintered as if pushed from within. Then came the scratching, slow, deliberate, from inside the walls. Not rats, not wind, fingernails on plaster. Sarah began speaking in two voices, one soft and childlike, the other deep and guttural, like stone grinding against bone. "She doesn't want guests," the guttural voice hissed. "She wants replacements." The house moaned in agreement, its foundation cracking. It had spent decades collecting souls to feed its hunger, but now it faced its original tenant, the first girl who'd been buried alive beneath its floorboards in 1823, whose rage had given the house its power and its curse. And she was done being forgotten. Mark was the first to break. He took an axe to the attic door, screaming that he'd rather burn the house down than serve a ghost. But the moment the blade struck wood, his body seized. His eyes rolled back, and his mouth opened unnaturally wide, as if something were climbing out of his throat. When he collapsed, he wasn't Mark anymore. He sat up slowly, head tilted, eyes black as pitch. "The house is hers," he said in a chorus of voices. "We are just the furniture." Elena grabbed Sarah and ran, but the front door led back to the kitchen. Every window showed only endless forest, no matter which way she turned. The house wasn't lying. It was rearranging reality. Upstairs, the scratching became pounding. Then silence. A single, bare footstep on the top stair. The guests gathered in the dining room, trembling, still dressed in their nightgowns. They set the table for one. Not for the house. Not for themselves. For her. The porcelain doll appeared on the head chair, its empty socket staring. And from the hallway, a whisper, "I'm hungry." The guests didn't scream when she descended. They bowed. One by one, they knelt, heads touching the floorboards that had once been her grave. She wasn't a ghost. She was a wound in the world, dressed in rotting lace and shadows. Her hair moved like smoke. Her fingers ended in bone. She sat at the head of the table, and the house exhaled in relief, as if finally free of a burden it never wanted. She took the doll, kissed its forehead, then placed it in Sarah's hands. "You'll take my place," she said, not unkindly. "The house needs a heart, and yours is still beating." Sarah didn't cry. She nodded, as if she'd known this moment would come since the day she drew the symbols in blood. Elena tried to protest, but her voice caught in her throat. Literally. Vines, black and thorny, sprouted from the floor, coiling around her neck, silencing her. The others watched, expressionless. They understood rebellion was a memory, obedience was survival, and the new heart of the house had already begun to beat. The next morning, the house was quiet. Too quiet. No humming. No clinking dishes. The table was set for 12 again. But Sarah sat at the head, eyes closed, breathing slowly. Her skin had taken on a pale, waxy sheen. Vines crept up her arms, blooming with black flowers that smelled of rain and regret. Elena sat beside her, silent, her neck still wrapped in thorns, now part of her like jewelry. The others moved like marionettes, eyes downcast, voices gone. Outside, the figure at the edge of the woods was gone. The house no longer needed a watcher. It had its new guardian. And deep in the forest, another traveler approached, drawn by the scent of wood smoke and the promise of shelter. The front door creaked open before they even knocked. Warm light spilled onto the porch. The table inside was already set for 13. From the attic, a child's soft voice whispered, "Come in. We've been waiting." The house was full again, and it would never be empty, not as long as there were lost souls and hungry hearts. The traveler was young, barely 20, with wind-chapped cheeks and a backpack full of dreams. He'd read online about Whispering Pines. Asterisk, perfect for solo retreats. Asterisk, he didn't know the locals crossed the road to avoid this stretch of forest. He didn't see the way birds fled as he passed. All he saw was smoke curling from a chimney, a golden glow in the windows, and the promise of warmth. He stepped inside without hesitation. The door closed behind him with a soft, final click. The air smelled of cinnamon and old wood. A woman, Elena, smiled from the kitchen, her eyes vacant but kind. "You must be hungry," she said, voice smooth as silk. He nodded, charmed by the hospitality. He didn't notice the vines creeping along the baseboards, didn't hear the faint sobbing from the attic, didn't see Sarah's eyes open, black, endless, and watching him from the shadows of the dining room. The house had him, and it was already rewriting his story. That night, the new guest, Liam, slept in the guest room. The bed was soft, the quilt stitched with strange symbols. He dreamed of his childhood home, but the walls were made of bone, and his mother's voice came from the closet. He woke to the scent of soup. Downstairs, the table was set. Everyone was there, faces placid, hands folded. Sarah sat at the head, fingers interlaced, eyes closed. "Sit," she said without opening them. He obeyed. The soup tasted like memory. His grandmother's kitchen, rain on rooftops, the last hug before college. He ate greedily. As he did, his backpack vanished from the hallway. His phone powered off, then crumbled into dust. In the mirror above the fireplace, his reflection blinked. But he hadn't. The house was peeling away his past, layer by layer, like old wallpaper. By dessert, a cake that never ended, served by invisible hands. He couldn't remember his last name. By midnight, he was smiling like the others. Vacant, grateful, ready. Sarah rarely spoke now. She didn't need to. The house spoke through her. The creak of a floorboard, the sigh of a draft, the whisper in the pipes. She spent her days in the attic, cradling the porcelain doll, humming lullabies that made the walls bleed. The guests served without question. They cleaned, cooked, and welcomed new arrivals with open arms and empty eyes. The house grew stronger with every soul absorbed. Its roots spread deeper into the earth, feeding on buried screams. Trees around it twisted into arches, forming a cathedral of thorns that kept intruders out and the family in. One night, Elena tried to write a letter. Just 3 words. Asterisk, help us please. Asterisk, but the ink turned to blood, and the paper burned in her hands. She didn't scream. She simply returned to the table and poured tea for 13. Resistance was a ghost now, faint, fading, forgotten. The house had won, not with violence, but with comfort, with silence, with the terrible, seductive lie that you were never alone. Years melted like wax, seasons blurred. The world outside forgot Whispering Pines. Maps stopped marking the path. But the house remembered everything. It remembered the first scream, the first guest, the first lie, and it kept collecting. A lost hiker, a runaway teen, a couple arguing in the woods who sought shelter from the rain. All entered smiling. All stayed silent. The dining table now seated 23, though the room hadn't grown. Time folded in on itself inside the walls. Past, present, and future tangled like roots. Sarah never aged. Her skin grew paler, her hair longer, her eyes deeper than the well behind the house. She spoke only to the doll, and to the wind that howled through cracks only she could see. The other guests moved like echoes, repeating the same phrases. "The soup is ready. Your room is warm. Stay as long as you like." They didn't know they were dead, Or maybe they just didn't care anymore. The house gave them peace. And peace, in the end, was the sweetest prison. In the deepest part of the forest, where no map dares to go, Blackwood Lodge still stands. Smoke curls from its chimney on cold nights. Lights flicker in its windows. And if you listen closely, very closely, you'll hear laughter. Warm, familiar, inviting. The house is always ready, always waiting. It doesn't need to hunt. It simply exists. And the lost find it. Because everyone, at some point, longs to be wanted, to be kept, to never be alone again. And the house promises exactly that. But the price is your name, your memory, your soul. You become part of its walls, its whispers, its endless feast. And one day, you'll stand at the window like Elena once did. Just for a second, your eyes flickering with a forgotten terror. Then it fades. You smile. You set the table. And when the next traveler approaches, you whisper with a chorus of stolen voices. Asterisk, come in. We've saved you a seat. Asterisk, the house is full, but it's always hungry for more. In a village that doesn't exist on any map, suits are stitched not from wool, but from skin. Every coat hides a scream. Every cuff bears a name of someone who vanished. Payment isn't in coins, it's in flesh, eyes, memories. A man ordered a wedding suit. He disappeared that night. 3 days later, his face was sewn into the mayor's overcoat. No one speaks. No one runs. Because the tailor doesn't make clothes. He weaves you into them asterisk asterisk. Welcome to Black Hollow. Here, horror isn't worn. You become the fabric. In the fog-drenched village of Black Hollow, nestled between gnarled oaks and forgotten graves, lived Elias Vorn, the last tailor for miles. His shop, draped in moth-eaten velvet and silence, stood at the edge of the cobbled square. Villagers whispered that his stitches never unraveled, his suits never wrinkled, and his prices were paid not in coin, but in secrets. Men who entered his shop seeking a wedding coat or funeral attire would vanish within days. Their families wept, posted missing posters on damp church doors. Then, weeks later, spotted familiar eyes staring back from the lapel of a stranger's waistcoat. No one dared accuse Elias. After all, he always delivered on time, and his craftsmanship was divine. But young Thomas Reed, whose brother vanished after ordering a charcoal gray 3-piece suit, refused to look away. He'd seen it, the glint of his brother's wedding ring sewn into the cuff of the mayor's new overcoat. That night, armed with a rusted knife and trembling resolve, Thomas crept toward the tailor's back door, unaware that Elias didn't just stitch fabric, he stitched souls into skin. The back door groaned open with a sigh, revealing a narrow staircase slick with something dark and viscous. Thomas held his breath, stepping onto the first stair. The air below reeked of formaldehyde, burnt hair, and copper blood, thick and old. Flickering candlelight bled through cracks in the floorboards above, casting writhing shadows that looked like fingers grasping at nothing. At the bottom, he found a room unlike any tailor's workshop. Walls lined with human pelts stretched over wooden frames, faces still intact, mouths sewn shut with black thread. One bore his brother's freckles. Thomas choked back a sob, pressing his palm against the cold cheek. Then a sound, the snip-snip of shears. From the far corner, Elias emerged, wearing a coat stitched entirely from lips, hundreds of them, whispering in muffled agony. "Ah, Thomas," he purred, adjusting a monocle made from a child's cornea. "I've been expecting your measurements." His fingers, long and bone-white, twitched toward a needle threaded with a strand of Thomas's own hair, left behind on his brother's last visit. Thomas stumbled backward, knife raised, but the floor beneath him gave way, a trapdoor slick with blood. He crashed onto a cold stone slab, wrists bound by sinewy thread before he could scream. Above him, Elias loomed, humming a lullaby in a language that made Thomas's teeth ache. Your brother's skin was coarse, the tailor mused, running a gloved hand over Thomas's forearm. But yours soft, supple, perfect for a winter lining. He selected a curved needle the length of a finger and dipped it into a jar of milky fluid. Don't worry, the pain ends once your consciousness settles into the fabric. You'll still see, hear, even feel the wind on what remains of your face. Thomas thrashed, but the threads tightened like living vines. Elias began slicing. Not deep, just enough to peel the epidermis cleanly. Each strip was laid over a mannequin shaped like a woman in evening wear. Thomas realized, with dawning horror, that this was no ordinary coat. It was a wedding dress, and the bride's face was already stitched onto the bodice. It blinked. The bride's eyes, once belonging to Eliza, the miller's daughter who vanished last spring, locked onto Thomas's. A tear of congealed blood rolled down her stitched cheek. Elias ignored it, humming as he threaded Thomas's freshly peeled forearm into the sleeve lining. She begged for beauty, he whispered. Now she'll never age, never rot. She'll attend every ball in Black Hollow for centuries. He pinned Thomas's chest skin to the bodice, aligning it with Eliza's collarbones. The pain was white-hot, but worse was the sensation of his nerves still firing. His own skin feeling the needle pierce it from the outside. He tried to scream, but his jaw had been sewn shut with gold thread during his blackout. Memories flashed. His brother laughing in the sun, their mother's apron stained with flour. Now all that remained of them was a cufflink and a collar. Outside, church bells tolled midnight. The annual winter gala was beginning. Elias stepped back, admiring his masterpiece. Perfect, he sighed. Now, let's find a buyer with your eyes. He reached for Thomas's face with a bone-handled scalpel. Just as the scalpel kissed Thomas's temple, the shop's front bell jingled. Elias froze. Footsteps, light, hesitant, approached from the showroom. "Tailor?" called a woman's voice, trembling. I need a mourning veil. For my son." Elias's lips curled into a smile that didn't reach his glassy eyes. He wiped the scalpel on Thomas's shirt and tucked it into his vest. "One moment, dear," he cooed, adjusting his blood-splattered cravat. As he climbed the stairs, Thomas strained against his bindings, eyes wide with renewed terror. He recognized that voice. It was Mrs. Alden, the schoolteacher, and mother of little Ben, who'd gone missing 3 days ago after asking for a new coat for Sunday service. Below, pinned like a butterfly, Thomas watched through a crack in the floorboards as Elias greeted her warmly, offering tea. On a nearby rack hung Ben's blue wool coat, now stitched with patches of scalp. Tiny fingers curled into the buttons. Mrs. Alden sipped her tea, unaware that her son's eyes now blinked from the lining of her future veil, and that Elias was already measuring her neck with his gaze. Thomas's pulse hammered in his throat as he watched Mrs. Alden sip her tea. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her fingers trembling around the delicate porcelain cup. She spoke softly of Ben, how he'd been so excited about his new coat, how he'd drawn little stars on the cuffs in chalk. Elias listened with mock sympathy, nodding slowly, his fingers drumming against the arm of his chair, a rhythm that matched the ticking of a hidden clock beneath the floor. Thomas tried to shout, to warn her, but his sewn-shut mouth only gurgled. Desperate, he jerked his body, causing a loose nail in the slab to scrape against his spine. A drop of blood rolled down his back and seeped through the floorboards, right onto the hem of Mrs. Alden's skirt. She blinked, looked down, then frowned. "Is that?" she began, but Elias interrupted with a practiced wave. "Just old wine," he lied smoothly. "This shop has seen many spills." She nodded, distracted, and turned back to her grief. Unknown to her, the blood drop had begun to crawl. A tiny tendril of crimson seeking the warmth of her skin, drawn by the same curse that bound Thomas to the stone. Elias rose, smoothing his vest. "Now, about your veil," he said, voice warm as honey laced with arsenic. He led her to a cabinet lined with black silks, but these weren't ordinary fabrics. Each veil shimmered with a faint pulse, as if woven from living veins. He selected one that fluttered without wind, its inner lining stitched with hundreds of tiny eyelids. "This one belonged to a grieving widow," he whispered. "She wept so much, her tears became part of the thread." Mrs. Alden reached out, her fingers hovering just above the fabric. The eyelids blinked in unison. Thomas, watching from below, screamed inwardly. He knew that veil. It had once been stitched from the scalp of Marlowe's wife, who'd vanished months ago after ordering funeral gloves. As Mrs. Alden touched it, a single tear rolled down her cheek and landed on the veil. Instantly, the fabric drank it. The eyelids fluttered faster. Elias smiled. "It likes you," he murmured. "Shall we take your measurements?" His hand drifted toward a tape measure, but the tape was made of human intestines, still glistening. Mrs. Alden hesitated, but grief made her compliant. She turned slowly, allowing Elias to drape the intestinal tape around her neck. The moment it touched her skin, it tightened. Not enough to choke, but enough to bind. She gasped, but Elias soothed her with a chuckle. "Just settling," he said. "It knows your sorrow." Below, Thomas writhed in silent agony. He saw Ben's little fingers twitch on the coat buttons, as if trying to reach his mother. The veil, now draped over her shoulders, began to grow, tiny threads snaking down her back like roots. Elias picked up a needle threaded with blackened sinew. "One small stitch," he whispered, "to seal your bond with the veil and with Ben." He pricked her nape. She didn't cry out, she smiled. Her eyes glazed over, pupils dilating into voids. Thomas realized with horror. The veil wasn't just clothing. It was a parasite, and it had just claimed its new host. Elias stepped back, admiring his work. "You'll wear him always," he cooed. "Every thread, a memory. Every seam, a heartbeat." As Mrs. Alden stood motionless, eyes vacant, Elias turned to the basement stairs. "Don't worry, Thomas," he called down, voice dripping with mock pity. "You'll be part of something beautiful too." He descended slowly, boots clicking like bones. Thomas tried to kick free, but the sinew threads had fused with his flesh, rooting him to the slab. Elias knelt beside him, stroking his hair like a father comforting a child. "You see, the village needs beauty, order, elegance, and I provide it, stitch by bloody stitch." He lifted Thomas's face, examining it like fabric. "Your eyes, they'll make a stunning brooch for the mayor's wife." Thomas wept silently, tears mixing with blood on his cheeks. Then, from the corner, the mannequin in the wedding dress shifted. Eliza's stitched mouth twitched into a grimace. The dress, now half complete, pulsed with a slow, wet heartbeat. Elias chuckled. "Ah, impatient, are we?" He turned to a work table cluttered with jars, each filled with floating organs labeled in cursive. Asterisk, tongue for collar embroidery, fingertips for button detailing. Asterisk, he picked up a jar labeled asterisk, eyes, blue, male, 22. Asterisk, Thomas's brother's eyes. Elias unscrewed the jar, the brine dripping onto the stone. He plucked the eyeballs out with silver tongs, rolling them in his palm like marbles. "Perfect clarity," he murmured. "They'll see everything, even from a brooch." He turned to Thomas, holding the eyes inches from his face. "Say hello to your brother." Thomas gagged, bile rising in his throat. The eyes blinked, once, twice, then locked onto his with desperate recognition. A low, wet sob escaped the jar, impossible yet undeniable. Elias chuckled, placing the eyes into a velvet pouch. "Don't worry, you'll join him soon." He returned to the wedding dress, threading a needle with nerve fiber. With surgical precision, he began stitching Thomas's peeled chest skin onto the bodice, aligning it over Eliza's ribs. Each puncture sent electric agony through Thomas's nervous system, but worse was the connection. He could feel Eliza's fragmented thoughts, her terror, her longing, her rage, and beneath it all, a whisper. Asterisk, help us burn it all. Asterisk, outside, thunder cracked. Rain began to fall, not water, but a thin crimson drizzle. The flesh weaver's work was almost done, and Black Hollow would wear its new season in blood. The crimson rain hissed as it struck the cobblestones outside, steaming where it touched metal. Inside the basement, the air grew thick with the scent of wet iron and burnt flesh. Thomas's mind reeled from the psychic link with Eliza, her memories flooding his skull like floodwater through broken walls. He saw her last moments, begging Elias to stop, promising to pay double, then screaming as her skin was peeled like paper from a book. Now, fused with her on the dress, her consciousness clawed at his, desperate for an ally. "The oil lamp," she whispered through the nerve stitch. Asterisk, "knock it over." Asterisk. Thomas strained against his restraints with every ounce of strength left. His fingers, still partly free, twitched toward a small brass lamp on the edge of the slab. Elias, absorbed in stitching Thomas's shoulder into the sleeve lining, didn't notice. With a final, agonizing lurch, Thomas's pinky finger hooked the lamp's base, teetered, then fell. Glass shattered. Oil splashed across the stone floor and onto Elias's trousers. The tailor froze. "You little maggot," he hissed, turning slowly, eyes blazing with cold fury. Elias stepped over the spilled oil, his boots squelching softly. He picked up the broken lamp, glass crunching under his fingers. "You think fire will save you?" he sneered, tossing the shards aside. "This place is already hell, Thomas, and I am its tailor." He grabbed Thomas's jaw, forcing him to look at the wedding dress. Eliza's face twitched again, a tear of black fluid leaking from the corner of her sewn eye. "She's been trying to burn this place down for weeks," Elias whispered. "But fabric doesn't burn when it's soaked in blood." He gestured to the walls. Every pelt, every garment glistened wetly in the candlelight. "Blood is the ultimate preservative. And your brother?" He screamed for 3 hours before his skin accepted the thread. Thomas's breath hitched. Elias released his jaw and reached for a new needle, one barbed like a fishhook, dipped in something that smoked. "Now let's finish your collar," he said sweetly. "It needs to match your brother's." As the needle pierced Thomas's throat, the rain outside turned heavier, drumming like 1,000 fists on the roof. And from the showroom above, Mrs. Alden began to hum a lullaby, the same one Elias had sung to Thomas. The lullaby slithered down the stairs like a serpent made of sound. Each note vibrated through Thomas's bones, syncing with the pulse of the half-finished dress. Eliza's thoughts grew louder. Asterisk, she's changing. The veil is taking her. Asterisk. Thomas glanced toward the floorboards. Through the crack, he saw Mrs. Alden standing perfectly still in the center of the showroom, her arms outstretched as if embracing an invisible child. Her eyes were fully black now, her mouth moving in time with the melody, but no breath escaped her lips. Elias paused his stitching, a rare flicker of unease crossing his face. "She wasn't supposed to wake so soon," he muttered. Suddenly, the blue wool coat on the rack twitched. Ben's fingers uncurled from the buttons and began to tap, a rhythm matching the lullaby. The coat slid off the hanger and hit the floor with a wet thud. It began to crawl toward the stairs. Elias swore under his breath and grabbed a jar labeled asterisk, "Salt, blessed, 1723. Asterisk. He flung a handful toward the moving coat. The fabric hissed and recoiled, but only for a moment. Then it lunged upward, dragging itself onto the first step, leaving a trail of dark fluid behind. Thomas's heart hammered against his ribs. Hope, fragile, desperate, flickered inside him. Maybe they can stop him, he thought. But Eliza's voice cut through. Asterisk. No. The veil doesn't fight the weaver. It serves him. It just chooses its host first. Asterisk. Above, Mrs. Alden turned her head, too slowly, too smoothly, and smiled at the crawling coat. "Ben," she whispered, her voice now layered with something ancient and hollow. "Come to Mama." The coat surged forward, dragging itself up the stairs with renewed vigor. Elias backed away, clutching his salt jar like a talisman. "Foolish woman," he snarled. "You think love can undo my craft?" He lunged for a drawer and pulled out a pair of silver shears etched with screaming faces. "I'll unmake you both." Just as he raised the shears, the wedding dress behind him ripped open along the spine. Eliza's stitched mouth tore wide, and a guttural scream erupted, not from her throat, but from every seam of the dress. The sound shattered the remaining candles. In the sudden darkness, Thomas felt the sinew bindings loosen. Eliza had used the last of her will to break his restraints. "Run!" Her voice echoed in his mind. "Burn it all!" Blind in the dark, Thomas rolled off the slab, his raw skin scraping against stone. Pain exploded through him, but he didn't stop. He stumbled toward the stairs as the coat reached the top, its sleeves writhing like tentacles. Mrs. Alden turned toward him, her black eyes gleaming. "Thomas!" she cooed, voice sweet and wrong. "Stay. You'll look lovely in Ben's new shoes." Behind her, Elias lit a match, his face contorted in rage. "You won't ruin this!" he screamed, lunging with the shears. Thomas ducked just in time. The blades sliced through Mrs. Alden's veil instead. The fabric shrieked, a chorus of lost souls, and burst into black flames. The fire didn't burn like normal fire. Consumed identity. Where it touched, faces melted into blank masks, memories dissolving like ash. Elias dropped the shears, clutching his chest as the veil's flames licked his coat. His own creation turning against him. Thomas didn't wait. He spotted the broken oil lamp, grabbed it, and hurled it at the wall of hanging pelts. They ignited instantly, roaring to life like a beast unchained. As fire swallowed the workshop, Thomas ran. Up the stairs, through the showroom, and into the crimson rain. Behind him, the flesh of Black Hollow screamed as it burned. The crimson rain soaked Thomas's torn body as he staggered into the village square. Behind him, Elias's shop roared like a dying beast, black smoke coiling into the blood-red sky. Villagers emerged from their homes, drawn by the chaos, but they didn't scream. They watched, blank-faced, silent. Some wore gloves stitched from lips. Others had collars made of human hair. Thomas realized with dawning horror. The whole village had been wearing pieces of the missing for years. They weren't victims. They were collaborators. One man stepped forward. Mayor Hargrove, his overcoat shimmering with familiar freckled skin. "You've ruined everything," he said coldly, adjusting his cufflink. "Thomas's brother's wedding ring. Do you know how long it took to weave that spring collection?" Thomas stumbled backward, but the crowd closed in, their eyes hollow, their smiles stitched too wide. He turned to flee, but the church doors burst open. Out stepped the priest, his robes woven entirely from children's palms, fingers still curled in prayer. "There is no escape," the priest intoned. "You are already part of the fabric." Thomas's breath came in ragged gasps. He looked down at his own chest. The skin Elias had peeled was already beginning to stitch itself back, but not with flesh. Thin black threads, like spider silk, wove across the wound, pulling his edges together with unnatural precision. He screamed, clawing at his chest, but the threads held firm. Worse, they itched, not with pain but with memory. He could feel Eliza's sorrow, his brother's last breath, Ben's confusion, all woven into him. The priest raised a hand made of stitched ears. "The weaver's craft lives in blood," he intoned, "and blood calls to blood." As if summoned, Thomas's own veins began to glow faintly beneath his skin, tracing patterns of Elias's designs. The villagers dropped to their knees, not in fear, but in reverence. Thomas tried to run again, but his legs wouldn't obey. His muscles twitched with someone else's will. He looked at his hands. They were turning pale, smooth, perfect for lining a winter coat. "No!" he sobbed, but his mouth moved on its own, forming words not his. "I am ready for the needle." From the burning ruin of the tailor's shop, a figure emerged, charred, limping, but alive. Elias. His coat was half melted. His face a patchwork of burned skin and raw muscle, one eye dangling by a nerve. Yet he smiled. "You see?" he rasped, dragging the silver shears behind him. "You cannot outrun the thread." He raised a trembling hand. The black threads in Thomas's chest pulsed in response. Thomas fell to his knees, vomiting blood that steamed in the crimson rain. The villagers began to chant. Not in words, but in the sound of needles piercing fabric. Snip, snip, snip. The priest approached, holding a needle the length of a rib bone. "The final stitch," he said reverently. Thomas tried to beg, but his tongue had fused to the roof of his mouth, stitched shut with gold thread, just like his brother's. Tears of blood rolled down his cheeks as the needle pierced his sternum. He didn't feel pain anymore. He felt purpose. And as his vision dimmed, he saw the wedding dress, now whole. Standing in the rain, Eliza's face serene, Ben's fingers waving from its hem. They were together, and soon he would be too. The next morning, the crimson rain stopped. Black Hollow was silent. Smoke still curled from the tailor's ruins, but the fire had consumed only the workshop, not the truth. In the village square, a new mannequin stood, draped in a three-piece suit of unsettling perfection. Its face was smooth, featureless, except for two blue eyes that blinked slowly in the dawn light. Villagers passed by without a word, but they touched the lapel as they walked, as if paying respects. Mayor Hargrove arrived at noon, wearing a new waistcoat lined with Thomas's skin. He adjusted his cufflink, his third this month, and smiled. At the church, the priest rang the bell for Sunday service. The pews filled quickly. Every attendee wore something new. Gloves, scarves, hats. All impossibly soft, all whispering faintly when the wind blew. From the altar, the priest held up a garment unlike any other. A seamless robe woven from the last 5 victims. "Behold," he declared, "the flesh of the faithful," and the congregation bowed, their stitched smiles gleaming in the stained glass light. Weeks passed. The seasons turned. Black Hollow thrived. Tourists came, drawn by rumors of the village that never ages. They marveled at the locals' flawless skin, their elegant clothes, their serene smiles. None noticed the eyes watching from coat buttons. None heard the whispers in the hems of their rented coats. One evening, a young traveler named Clara entered Elias's rebuilt shop, now run by a quiet boy with blue eyes and a too-perfect smile. "I need a coat for the winter," she said. The boy nodded, measuring her shoulders with fingers that felt strangely warm. "Of course," he said softly. "We always have just the right fit." As he turned, Clara caught a glimpse of his back, where his skin peeled slightly at the seam, revealing fresh stitches beneath. She smiled. She'd heard the stories, and she didn't care. She wanted to be beautiful forever too. Outside, the first drops of crimson rain began to fall again. The flesh weaver never died. He only changed hands, and Black Hollow would always need new thread.